The world saw Elvis Presley as the most confident man on the planet. But away from the spotlights, he was someone full of doubts, fear, and insecurity when it came to love. At the height of his fame, on the set of a film forgotten by many, the King of Rock asked an intimate question that no one would expect to hear from him. How do you manage to keep a strong marriage in Hollywood? That question was asked to Barbara Eden, and the reason behind it involves a mysterious young woman named Priscilla. The story you're about to hear reveals an Elvis that almost no one knows, vulnerable, human, and deeply in love. Elvis Presley was no longer just a popular singer. He was a phenomenon that redefined behavior, fashion, and attitude on a global scale. Every public appearance caused a frenzy, every single broke records, and every move he made was analyzed as if it were a historic event. But at that specific moment, far from the stages and explosive shows, Elvis was searching for something different. Recognition as a serious actor, someone capable of going beyond musical entertainment and diving into deeper, more human characters. It is in this context that the set of Flaming Star appears. The film represented a conscious attempt to break away from the light musicals that had dominated his filmography up to that point. There, Elvis was not the romantic idol who sang and danced seductively. He played Pacer Burton, a young man divided between two cultures, living through deep internal conflicts marked by doubts, thoughts, and difficult choices. This role demanded sensitivity, introspection, and emotional surrender, revealing a side that many fans and critics were not yet used to seeing. The filming environment was completely different from the vibrant atmosphere of the stages. There were no hysterical screams or colorful lights. There was dust, period costumes, horses, contemplative silence between takes. And it was precisely in this calmer space that Elvis began to show a more human, more accessible, more real side. Barbara Eden, who acted alongside him, has always spoken fondly of that experience. To her, Elvis did not behave like an unreachable star. He was polite, cordial, attentive to the details of the work, and surprisingly kind to the entire crew. He didn't insist on imposing himself, didn't seek excessive privileges, and treated everyone with respect. Many members of the production described him as shy at certain moments, almost introspective, especially when the cameras were turned off. During breaks in filming, while technicians adjusting lighting and directors discussed framing, Elvis would usually sit in a more reserved corner and strum his guitar. He sang songs softly, not to impress, but almost as if he were seeking comfort in the music itself. It was there that he seemed most genuine, more serene, more distant from the public persona the world knew. These moments created a space of closeness between him and Barbara Eden. The conversation flowed naturally, first about the film, then about career, and gradually, almost imperceptibly, the words began to take on a more personal tone. Elvis showed curiosity about how it was possible to maintain an emotionally stable life amid the chaos of the entertainment industry. He questioned, observed, reflected. Barbara noticed that there was a different kind of restlessness in him. It wasn't just the usual fatigue of an intense routine, it was something deeper, more sensitive. He seemed to carry an internal conflict that could not be resolved with fame, money, or recognition. It was as if, for the first time in a long time, he was trying to understand who he was beyond the title of King of Rock. The way Elvis spoke in those moments was completely different from the confident and dominant stance the public saw. He expressed himself carefully, with a certain apprehension, weighing his own emotions. He showed genuine concern about the future, about personal choices, about feelings that were starting to become hard to ignore. There, between costumes and silences, Elvis let something rare slip out: vulnerability. He did not speak like a superstar, but like a man who felt the weight of his own public existence. He showed that, behind the confident smile and magnetic posture, there was someone trying to understand what it meant to grow up, to take on emotional responsibilities, and to deal with his own sensitivity. This setting completely transforms the way we see that period. Flaming Star was not just another movie in his career. It was a quiet milestone of inner transformation, where Elvis began to question who he really was and what he wanted for his personal life. There, it wasn't just the artist seeking new professional horizons, but the human being in conflict with his own heart. His relationship with Barbara Eden at that stage symbolized a kind of emotional safe space. She did not see him as a myth, but as a co-worker, someone capable of having doubts, making mistakes, and feeling deeply. This neutrality allowed him to express himself without fear of judgment, something rare in his routine, which was surrounded by flattery and unrealistic expectations. While the world saw the shine, she saw the silence. While the fans saw the spectacle, she saw the man sitting, thinking, reflecting, trying to understand his own place in the world. That is the essence of this first chapter, the moment when the myth began to reveal the human being behind the legend. Before we move on to the next chapter of this story, I want to hear from you. In the comments, tell me if you had ever stopped to think about Elvis in this Flaming Star context, trying to reinvent himself as an actor and showing this shyer and more vulnerable side behind the scenes. Your opinion is very important for this debate among fans, so comment now and then come back to keep listening to the rest of the story. And it is precisely in this space, in this almost intimate atmosphere behind the scenes of Flaming Star, that Elvis shows something that few people witnessed up close. The transition between the boy from Tupelo who conquered the world and the man who was beginning to question whether fame alone would be enough to fill the emptiness that was beginning to grow inside him. The mysterious young woman Elvis talked about during that period represented much more than a simple romantic interest. She symbolized the possibility of a different life, a quiet temptation of normality amid the chaos of fame. Far from the lights of Hollywood and collective hysteria, Elvis had met a girl who awakened something rare in him: tranquility, genuine curiosity, and an almost naive desire to protect. During his time in Germany, while serving in the army, Elvis experienced a routine completely different from the one he had in the United States. There, he was not just the unreachable idol of the masses, but also a young soldier far from home, exposed to moments of introspection and solitude. It was in that setting that he met Priscilla, someone who was not part of the media circuit, did not belong to the world of celebrities, and did not carry the constant pressure of the entertainment industry. She appeared as a counterpoint to the tumultuous life he led. While everything around him revolved at a frantic pace, Priscilla represented calm, stability, and a sense of emotional refuge. Elvis, who had always been surrounded by admirers and fleeting opportunities, saw in her something deeper, a possibility of real connection, something that did not dissolve after the end of a show or a recording. But that feeling came with an intense internal conflict. Elvis knew that his public life was not normal. He was fully aware of the impact his fame could have on anyone who got close to him on a deeper level. The fear of causing suffering, of destroying someone's innocence, or dragging her into a life of constant exposure weighed on his decisions. It was exactly this restlessness that he shared with Barbara Eden. His words were not those of a confident man, but of someone who felt divided between two worlds, that of love and that of responsibility. He wanted to be close to that young woman, but he feared that the reality of his life could be too cruel. When talking about Priscilla, Elvis did not show only passion, but an almost paternal concern, mixed with romanticism and insecurity. He questioned whether it would be fair to take her out of her quiet life and introduce her to a universe that not even he fully understood. Different countries, different cultures, military routine, artistic commitments, endless tours, headlines, and rumors formed the backdrop of his life, and he knew that was not easy for anyone. This dilemma reveals an Elvis very different from the public image of excess and carelessness. It reveals a man who thought about consequences, who was afraid of making mistakes, who understood the emotional weight of his decisions. It was not just about love, but about emotional responsibility. When Priscilla finally came more directly into his life, the relationship took on even more complex contours. The difference between her world and his was evident. He had already gone through many intense experiences, while she was just beginning her personal journey. This gap made Elvis even more cautious, even more aware of the need to protect and guide. Over time, the relationship developed under a mix of passion, care, and silent tension. Elvis tried to balance the role of partner and protector while dealing with the demands of his career. Shows, recordings, contracts, photo sessions, and inescapable commitments never let up. Even so, he tried to create a space where the relationship could flourish. When the marriage finally happened, it seemed to many like the crowning of a romantic story that defied the barriers of fame. Elvis and Priscilla became one of the most watched couples in the world, surrounded by admiration, curiosity, and expectations. However, behind the glamour, there was still the same man who, years earlier, had asked a coworker for advice because he did not know if he would be able to be happy in love. The arrival of Lisa Marie brought a new chapter to his life. Elvis showed deep affection for his daughter, and this bond made the emotional weight of his choices even greater. He wanted to be a good father, a present husband, someone capable of offering emotional security, even when the world demanded his presence everywhere. However, the demands of fame remained relentless. The intense routine and the natural wear and tear of a relationship under constant exposure began to create silent distances. The same fear he had expressed in the past began to materialize, the difficulty of sustaining a healthy married life amid permanent pressures. Even so, the story of Elvis and Priscilla cannot be reduced only to its ending. At its core, it carries a portrait of humanity, fragility, and a sincere attempt to love. It was a relationship built from real feelings, even if complex, imperfect, and challenging. This second chapter reveals an Elvis who not only sang about love, but faced daily the difficulty of living it fully. A man who, even surrounded by adoration, saw himself as insecure, cautious, and sensitive when faced with the possibility of hurting someone important to him. More than a mythological figure, he showed himself as someone in constant internal conflict, trying to understand how to be happy in a world that never really allowed him to live in silence. In that setting, Priscilla was not just a wife or partner, but a fundamental part of his emotional process, a figure who represented hope, affection, and the possibility of a simpler life, even if that simplicity was never truly within his reach. The third chapter of this story takes us beyond the bright stages, the deafening applause, and the almost mythical image the world built around Elvis Presley. Here, the focus is no longer just on the artist and rests instead on the man who existed when the curtains closed, when the lights went out, and when silence took the place of the crowd. The conversation with Barbara Eden is a direct reflection of that. It shows an Elvis who did not see himself as infallible, who recognized his own weaknesses, and who was not ashamed to admit that he needed guidance. This willingness to listen, to question, and to reflect reveals a genuinely human trait, far from the untouchable figure that many believed existed. As time went by, the pressure of fame became more and more intense. The constant demand for productivity, public presence, and perfection began to weigh on his emotional health. Elvis felt the weight of always being expected to be at his best, always strong, always grand, even when internally he felt exhausted, confused, or vulnerable. This silent strain affected not only his career, but also his personal relationships. The difficulty in maintaining stable bonds, the conflict between professional duty and the desire for a private life, and the gradual distancing from a simple routine created a scenario of progressive isolation. Even so, Elvis never stopped showing affection, especially for his daughter, who held a special place in his heart. Even after the end of his marriage to Priscilla, he maintained a bond of respect, care, and consideration. This behavior reinforces the idea that his essence was not driven by selfishness, but by a complex network of emotions that did not always find space to be expressed in a healthy way. The man behind the king was someone who felt deeply. He did not just perform songs about love, longing, and loss. He lived those feelings intensely. His music was a direct reflection of his experiences, his anguish, and his constant desire for true connection. Over the years, many narratives have tried to simplify his life, reducing it to excesses or scandals. However, a more sensitive analysis reveals a much richer picture. That of a human being in search of balance, trying to deal with his own fame without completely losing his identity. Elvis's vulnerability did not make him weaker. It made him more real, closer, more understandable. His sensitivity, often hidden behind charisma and confident posture, was what gave depth to his art and authenticity to his presence. This third topic is not about glory, but about the silence that existed between the applause. It is about the man who wanted to be loved not only for what he represented, but for who he really was. It is about someone who, even with the whole world at his feet, still wondered if he could ever be truly happy. Elvis carried within himself the weight of being a living legend, but he also carried simple dreams, everyday fears, and the desire to live a life that, in many moments, was denied to him by the sheer magnitude of his fame. He wanted to be successful, but he also wanted to be understood. He wanted to be admired, but also embraced. Now I want you to take an active part in this conversation. In your opinion, did Elvis manage to find that balance between being the king of rock and being just a man trying to love and be loved? Write your view in the comments. Tell us what you think about this conversation he had with Barbara Eden and everything it reveals about his relationship with Priscilla. Your opinion is an essential part of this story, so leave it there so that other fans can reflect along with you. By looking at this more intimate side, we understand that his greatness did not lie only in his extraordinary talent, but in the humanity that persisted behind the icon. His story is a reminder that behind every myth there is a person with pain, difficult choices, and complex feelings. Elvis's legacy does not reside only in his music or in the cultural revolution he sparked, but in his ability to move entire generations emotionally. He left more than songs. He left an identity built on emotion, truth, and intensity. This more human portrait allows us to see him not only as the king of rock, but as a man who lived intensely, who tried to love, understand, and survive within a world that turned him into something bigger than he could ever fully control. And it is precisely this duality that keeps his memory alive. Because Elvis was not just a star. He was a complex, sensitive soul, deeply marked by the choices he had to make throughout his journey. By understanding this less visible side, we get closer to who he really was. Not just an immortal legend, but a man who felt, who doubted, who dreamed, and who, above all, searched for meaning amid the endless blare that surrounded him. And now that you've discovered this more human, sensitive, and true side of Elvis Presley, it becomes impossible to see him only as a distant icon. He was much more than the king of rock. He was a real man, with deep feelings, silent doubts, and a constant search for love and balance amid the glare of fame. If this story touched you, if it brought a new perspective on who Elvis really was, show it now. Subscribe to the channel to keep following exclusive content about the life, career, and behind the scenes of the King of Rock and other great names who marked the history of music. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos and so you're always alerted when a new story goes live. Leave your like because that helps the channel keep bringing quality content to those who truly love Elvis. Comment down below which song by the King has marked your life the most, what you think about this conversation he had with Barbara Eden, and how you see his attempt to balance love and fame. Your opinion on this topic is essential for us to keep building a community of fans who truly understand and respect his story. And share this video with friends, family, and everyone who carries Elvis in their soul, because keeping this story alive is a way to honor everything he represented. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video. TCB always.